All right, let's take you back to one of our leading stories now. And the first constituency results emerged yesterday in Zimbabwe's elections. And so while those trickle in, the race for the presidential position is between the incumbent President Emmerson Mnangagwa and the opposition leader Nelson Chamisa. Now, we are hoping to connect you to Audrey Chimwanda. She is our correspondent in Zimbabwe. Just trying to connect with her a little earlier. You would have seen a slight mistake on our part, bringing you a media briefing that was addressed by Zanu PF overnight. And so, Zanu PF, let's perhaps get from Audrey what that particular briefing from Zanu PF would have said. All right, I'm told that she is struggling to hear us, and so as soon as we try and connect with Audrey, we are going to bring that media briefing to you, because at the moment she is about to talk to us on the election observer mission, and it is one of those election observer missions is the SADC mission that is in Zimbabwe. Audrey, I'm told that you are able to hear me now. Well, there does seem to be a lot of movement that is going on there as Audrey tries to connect to us. All right, Audrey, now that that lens is clean, let's talk about the media briefing first that was addressed by Zanu PF overnight. In a very short summation of what they had to say, what would you say were points that stood out for you before we talk about the SADC observer mission that's about to brief now?
The Treasurer General of the ruling party, Zanu PF, Patrick Chinamasa, was very clear in his briefing last night that President Mnangagwa will be winning, once again retaining, winning a second term of office. He went into detail when it comes to the parliamentary seats, 210 of them. He gave what we can only call a parallel voter tabulation, which has been criticized by the opposition party and other members of NGOs here, as that has been an issue with some of the observers that came to watch this election and give their feedback, who were arrested. I'm sure you're aware of the 40 members that were arrested a couple of days ago that were doing the same thing. He gave some preliminary results that reflect that Zanu PF will be retaining a two-thirds majority in Parliament, while the CCC will be retaining a third of the majority. Those are preliminary results, of course, not official from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, but that's what Zanu PF said. So those are the two key takeaways that we got from Zanu PF yesterday. But coming into today, we are at the venue here, the Harare International Conference Center, right beside the National Results Center, where we expect a delegation from the African Union as well as SADC, the electoral observer mission that came from the 10th of August, pre the election, of course, that have been going around the 10 provinces of the country. And theirs is to observe if international human rights are being observed in this election, and also if this is going to be a free and fair election. They are going to do a joint press briefing here in a few minutes, the top of the hour actually, at 11 o'clock. And they're going to tell us a preliminary report. So it's not the final report, just what they've observed so far. And an hour after that, we'll be moving to another venue where the Commonwealth Observer Mission will also be giving their preliminary report, and that is the most anticipated from the Zimbabwean government. If some of the comments we've seen from the spokesperson of the presidency is anything to go by. So the Commonwealth Observer Mission as well as the EU Electoral Observer Mission will be giving their preliminary reports an hour from now. We also heard once again from the presidential spokesperson, George Charamba, who had warned particularly those from outside SADC and the African Union that came into this country to observe these elections, that in a statement attributed to him, in quotes, "stray or you will be deported." So it's quite interesting to hear what the international observers will be saying at the backdrop of that strong wording coming from the presidency spokesperson, Oli.
And Audrey, we've got to talk about the activists that we understand are in police custody as we speak. Those people, what do you understand to have been the reason for their arrest? And is there anyone who is representing them? I'm talking about legal representation right now.
We expect them to appear in court, and then thereafter we'll have more details with regards to who exactly they are. But we do know which two organizations that they come from. They were actually accredited to come and cover these elections. What they had been doing, what they've been carrying out in their hotel rooms is doing a parallel voter tabulation of the preliminary results that had been coming through, and we're made to understand that they had their own platform of collating these results that were coming from the different constituencies and the polling stations that are stationed across the country, which is something that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and the police took issue with, and that is part of the reason why they were detained and arrested. As soon as they appear in court, we'll be able to give more detail with regards to exactly what the charges are and how this case will unfold.
And before I let you go, Audrey, just gauging the national mood in Zimbabwe. A little earlier, you spoke to someone who was in the running for the presidency, and they were disqualified for whatever reasons that were put forward. But interesting words coming from her, saying that she is embarrassed to be a Zimbabwean. Tell us why those sentiments.
She was alluding to how the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, the electoral body in charge of running and overseeing this election, has actually conducted this election. We do know that in an unprecedented move, Zimbabwe had to go into day 2 of general elections, something that has never happened before. And I can tell you, really, as the media, we've been having a really tough time trying to get any kind of statements from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, leading us to believe that perhaps there was a bit of unpreparedness on their side. We have been waiting to get a press briefing from them as well. It is still not clear when that will happen. We're told it might happen today, a bit later on, and then maybe we'll be able to pose some of those questions that we've had, not only as the media, myself as a citizen of this country, of course, just curious to hear why all these issues have happened when a date was proclaimed way before the elections happened, particularly with the issue of the printing of the ballots, because you will remember the ZEC had actually put out a statement telling the nation exactly how many ballots had been printed for this particular election, giving the impression that all was ready to go and everything had been prepared accordingly ahead of this election.
Audrey, Chimwanda is our correspondent in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for that comprehensive update. And so when that SADC observer mission, when that media briefing does get underway, we are hoping to take you there. Very, very important that we watch the space very closely.